Alright, greetings and salutations everyone. This is Rollinwolf coming at you with another episode of Let's Talk Daggerheart Beta 5. This is episode 13. We're going to round out our character creation episodes here with covering experiences, your starting inventory, player principles, and your best practices as a player. So hopefully this will get you some answers that you need and kind of round out those questions maybe that you still have lingering from character creation. Let us get started. Let me cover the copyright notice real quick. This product was created using the Darrington Press Community Gaming License, the Illuminated Worlds Standard Resource Document, Darrington Press LLC, all rights reserved. Specifically, we're talking the Daggerheart Beta 1.5 rule set today. The finished product is due out in the spring of 2025, and we will, of course, be updating once we have the finalized rules in our hands. But for now, if you want to kick the tires on Daggerheart and give it a spin and start playing, the beta rule set is out there for free. Thank you, Darrington Press, and thank you, Daggerheart. Let's get into experiences. Okay, so you get to start your character with 2 experiences. Now, experiences, there's not set experiences laid out. This is going to be one of the core ways that you get to express your backstory and your character's expertise, basically, and do so mechanically, right? This is how you're going to be able to get those not advantage, because advantage is a specific mechanic in the game, but this is how you're going to let everyone know in the story and in the fiction what your character is really good at, what they shine at, the things you want to express that your character excels, right? And so you can go with like some examples in the beta are backgrounds, characteristics, specialties, skills, and phrases, right? And each of those has some examples. So let's go over just a handful from each one. So backgrounds. Backgrounds for your character can represent things like maybe they were an assassin, or a blacksmith, a bodyguard, a scholar, a sellsword, a soldier, storyteller, a thief, a world traveler. These are all great places to start. If you can make them more specific, to add some of that extra flavor and flair to the experience itself, to the background itself, that definitely can help. So, for example, say you wanted to go with an assassin, right? Instead of just saying my character is an assassin as part of their experience, why not go? My character is an assassin of the Sapphire Syndicate. I believe that might even be the example that they use in the beta. So that defines, now you're not just an assassin, but you're an assassin of the Sapphire Syndicate. What is the Sapphire Syndicate? That gives you a chance to discuss that more yourself, or give your GM something that now they know there's a Sapphire Syndicate out there and they're assassins. What is it that they do? What are their principles? How are they different from just a regular assassin? Same thing with, like, maybe instead of being simply a blacksmith, you decide your background experience is a blacksmith of the Dwarven Guild of Artificers, right? So now you have that experience, but you can also put that flavor into the game and make it stand out more than just a simple smith. That's a couple of examples for backgrounds. Characteristics. affable, bookworm, charming, coward, intimidating presence, a lone wolf, loyal, silver tongued. These are all things that your character represents characteristics of your character, personality traits, things that they're good at, or experiences that you want them to be able to pull upon. Maybe they were a veteran of a war, right? And so you've got veteran of the Komeda War. Okay, we'll just make that up off the top of our head. So what does that mean? You can call upon that as, and your GM may ask you to elaborate. Well, what does being a veteran of the Komeda War mean? Well, it means that you've seen a lot of combat, you've lived rough in the trenches, you're used to having to tough things out. Maybe your side won, maybe your side lost, but whatever it is, maybe people have certain feelings about veterans from this war that you could apply to in social situations. So you've got these characteristics that you can play off of. You've got the option for specialties, like perhaps an acrobat, a gambler, a magical historian, maybe you're a cartographer, a navigator, a sharpshooter, maybe you're a tracker, and you can use the same thing as before with the other backgrounds. You can make these specialties belong to a specific group, or maybe something even more defined, or to give it more flavor. Maybe you're a tracker of the royal court, or a acrobat in the Circus of Wonders, magical historian of the Great Library, you've got options there to make it more distinctive and more unique. We've got skills. So you can choose, like perhaps you're excellent at barter, that you're a fast learner, you've got light feet, incredibly strong, maybe you've got quick hands, or you're a scavenger. These are all things that you can apply to multiple situations and kind of define some abilities of your character, right? Or you can go with phrases. Phrases can be a lot of fun and could apply in a number of different ways. Some examples: catch me if you can, chef to the royal family, first time's the charm, hold the line, I won't let you down, I've got your back, knowledge is power, nature's friend. What do these mean? They're open to interpretation, and you can get creative with them. Maybe some of them can be used diversely in creative ways whenever you think about it. The important thing to do is you want to have experiences that you can call upon, but the goal is not to make experiences that you can apply to every role. The experiences should stand out and let your character excel and shine in specific situations. Now you want to be able to use your experiences every game session of some sort, right? You don't want to never be able to use your experiences because you made them so specific or so refined that you don't easily find a way to implement them into the game session. But you don't want them so broad or so generalized that you're every single role you're applying 2 or 3 experiences to your role. As soon as you can get the hope, it's not something you want to oversaturate your game with. And your story, you want them to shine in those moments, and you want them to be able to have these in their back pocket that they can call upon when you really need them. But you don't want to, like I said, even if you can apply your experience just about every single time, I encourage you not to overuse it. That can be a way that you may find yourself being asked to change your experience if it's too broad or so generalized that you're able to apply it to almost every situation or role. Then that is sometime then you should consider figuring out something to narrow it back to. And you can do this yourself if you find yourself in that situation. Talk to your GM and say, hey, I really think that this is too broad because I can't help myself but use it almost all the time, because I want to roll good. Everyone knows that, of course, you want to shine. Everybody wants to shine. But if you want your character to feel like a real person, they're going to have those moments where they fail. They're going to have those moments where they're not the spotlight character. And that should be the way it is. You're playing a cooperative game with a table full of other people as well. This isn't a solo story. And even if it was, like I said, you don't want to be that character that does no wrong, that can do no wrong. That's a boring kind of character, in all honesty. If you never have any setbacks and you never have any failures, that is going to be a fiction that gets boring, in my opinion. And where would the challenge come from if you never have failures or setbacks? If everything you touch is golden, then pretty quickly it's going to kind of not be as exciting. Even if you're having a great time, probably if you look around the table, everybody else might not be having such a great time if you can do no wrong. And you are always available to be able to take care of whatever the issue is. Check what your experiences are and see what you can adjust. But the availability and diversity of potential experiences is only limited by your creativity. So work with your GM, work with your fellow players at the table, and get some good experiences that are going to let you really see the flavor of your character and let your character shine. Give them personality with your experiences. And that is my advice to you on that matter. I think that will cover enough there. If this does need to be gone over more, please feel free to shoot me questions or messages. I'm happy to get into more of a problem solving or advice giving situation with the series as we move forward, and hopefully we'll get that interaction going as well. Let me know. I'm happy to advise. But we're going to move on to the inventory, right? Because this is one of the other few things that you will need to look over. So when we went over the classes, we discussed every class has a couple of options for a item that it has listed for your class. Now, either of those options is perfectly acceptable, and probably will require some follow-up questions to flesh out and make it more specific to your character. Also, you can use those as inspiration. I would advise, if you really don't feel like either of those choices suit you, then work with your GM to come up with something else that can kind of tie in your class, because this is where you get this item from, is your class. So what other item might be something that you could connect to your class other than these two options? Not necessarily something that gives you vast mechanical benefits or anything like that, but it should be something that informs the narrative. It could be even a personal item. But let it, and it doesn't have to be totally useless either. As you'll see, there's several things that can work for great plot hooks or items that might come in handy in your particular situation. Work with your GM and come up with something if your options are not something that you're too excited about. Okay? Other than that, we're going to first go over your other inventory that is pretty stock and standard, right? Everybody has these starting items included in their list. A torch. Oh, my apologies. So, a torch. Does it have to be a torch? No, it can be, if you would prefer to have like a little lamp or lantern, work with your storyteller. I don't see much difference there. Maybe a handful of candles instead of a torch with a candle holder or something of that nature. But this is some way of illumination, right? That's what it really is all about. So some sort of illumination. 50 foot of rope. A stock item for adventurer type characters, right? Who doesn't have a supply of rope if they're going into doing dungeon delving and things like that? You can determine what kind of rope this is. It's basically, they're talking about, rappelling rope, things that, like that. And the old 50 foot of rope has been kind of a staple of Dungeons and Dragons since the beginning of RPGs, right? But it does make sense for someone that's going to be doing explorations and delving into dungeons and dangerous places, that they might have rope. Even if you're just traveling from place to place, rope is immensely useful thing to have on you and can be used for a variety of things in camp life and beyond. So a versatile thing. And then you've got basic supplies, right? And that's as detailed as it gets. Basic supplies, useful for things like camping in the wilderness. This can be detailed by you and the GM on what constitutes these basic supplies. What would your character, how would they prepare themselves? What would they carry into a situation where they were traveling or being out in the wilds of the land? You can leave this vague, or you can nail it down. That is something to be discussed during session 0. Definitely have a bit of a. It's a good idea to be on the same page with your game master on what that covers. People may have very different opinions on what is considered basic supplies. So when in doubt, discuss. That's always the right answer whenever we're talking Daggerheart. If you're in doubt of what specifically is going on, discuss with the table. Come to a consensus and move forward, right? Everyone gets to start with a handful of gold. That's very vague, isn't it? Well, gold in Daggerheart is a very vague concept. It's not something that we're going to get tied down into and be nitpicky about, right? So allow your players to, and this is going to be hard for some people because they're very used to tracking every single copper that they've ever had in their possession. And if that is what is fun for you and your table, discuss going to something that is more well-defined. But I encourage you to leave it in these vague kind of ways, because really the spirit of this game is more following the adventure and the fiction of these characters, right? And you're not as concerned about how much exactly X, Y, or Z costs. You want to have that feel of, are the characters, starting out a handful of gold doesn't sound like very much, right? Well, that also depends on the economy of your world. A handful of gold might be more money than a commoner sees in a whole year, or it could be enough to make it through a week. So, kind of discuss what that means, a handful of gold. I would take it to mean that you probably have got a good amount of coin. You shouldn't have any issues in your day-to-day dealings as long as you're not going crazy, blowing, trying to buy extravagant and expensive items. This should cover you for meals, your stays at taverns or inns, the minor things you may need to do, pay some entry fees into a town or taxes. Eventually, if you obtain no more money, you should start running out. But should that handful of gold evaporate, and you suddenly find yourself destitute? That's up to the story you're telling. Personally, unless it is something that we specifically address about wanting to really have an impact on the campaign, let your fiction dictate more of the how dire straits your characters are in as far as money goes. Should a highborn, be able to stay at lavish inns, eat very expensive meals? It very much fits their character. And if you don't want to basically have your character that's highborn sit around and potentially being like, oh, well, I can buy whatever the heck I want. Should they have a bit more money? Probably. But being of that social status, you could also have them have lines of credit, or maybe simply nobility doesn't pay for things in the same way that commoners do. And no one dare, say, well, excuse me, your lordship, but, you have a bill here. That may be something that just isn't done, that is for you to determine in your fiction. But I encourage you to not get bogged down in the crunchy bits, right? That's we're telling a story and a saga that is much more impactful if we go off of the fiction and let that kind of inform our characters' well-being, the ability to be able to purchase minor things or stay at a good inn. That is going to be a table-to-table thing, and I encourage you to have that discussion if you feel strongly one way or the other about it during session 0. Then it says that you can choose to either take a minor health potion or a minor stamina potion, which either clears a D4 hit points or a D4 stress. Finally, you have an and either option, and this is what we were talking about for the class options. You can choose one or the other class item that's on your class, or like I said, if neither of those really get you excited or inspire you, talk to your GM, see what you can work out instead of one of those items. Should not be too difficult to do, but remember, this is remember the spirit of this game. And I think when you think about Daggerheart and the goals of our game that we're playing, I think you will find yourself moving further away from worrying about counting every coin or needing to know exactly how much X, Y, or Z is going to cost. But if you do need to be more detailed, if your table is full of people that need that solid count, then the suggestion is you add coins, and 10 coins make a handful, and then 10 handfuls make a bag, 10 bags make a chest, 10 chests make a hoard, and you can extrapolate from there. But I think leaving it vague and not worrying so specifically about those crunchy bits lets you get to things that are much more interesting to affect the narrative and the tale of the game. If you want to emphasize, if you're playing a campaign that does emphasize exploration and classic, dungeon delving, and loot is going to be a big deal, then be generous with it. Give plenty of, handfuls. Then switch over to bags and just let the treasure flow and ebb. Give them, it all depends on the style of the game you're playing, the narrative you're telling. If loot is going to be a big focus in the game, then be generous with it. Let it flow back and forth, and make it a living and breathing part of the campaign. Otherwise, let it sit in the background and not be a nuisance to you, and distract from what the real story is. But that is something, like I said, to discuss with your table. And then after that, we're going to go and take a look at it says that you can pick out a primary weapon and a secondary weapon. If you are a spellcaster, you have spellcasting options. Then you can choose from the tier 1 magical weapons. If you're a physical character that doesn't really do magic, then look at your primary weapons that are your regular primary weapons. And we've got the list here, and then you can flavor that list to taste. So let's take a look. We've got broadsword and longsword, which are both agility trait weapons. Range is melee. A broadsword is a one-handed weapon that does a D8. It also has a feature called reliable, which allows you to get +1 to attack rolls with this weapon. Your longsword is an agility weapon as well. Range is melee, does a D8 +3 physical. It is a two-handed weapon, and it has no special features. Then you got mace and battle axe. Both are strength weapons. For their trait, melee as range. Damage for the mace is a D8 +1 physical, one-handed. Battle axe, you've got strength, melee, D10 +3 physical, two-handed weapon. You've got the great sword, which is another strength weapon. Melee range, D10 +3, two-handed, and it has got the feature of massive, which means you get a -1 to your agility, but you roll 1 extra damage die and drop the lowest when you're rolling damage. Warhammer, another strength weapon. Melee, a D12 +3, two-handed. So they're not talking about a small Warhammer. They're talking about a big, massive maul, right? This is the big boy. D12 damage +3, two-handed, heavy, -1 to your agility. You've got dagger, which is a finesse weapon, melee, does a D8 +1, one-handed. Quarterstaff is an instinct weapon, melee, D10 +3, two-handed. Cutlass, presence weapon, melee, D8 +1 physical, one-handed. Rapier, another presence weapon, melee, a D8, one-handed. It's got the feature of being quick. When making an attack roll, mark a stress to include an additional target in range. You've got the halberd, which is a strength weapon. It's got a range of very close. Does a D8 +2 and is two-handed. Spear, Finesse, very close, D8 plus 2, two-handed. You've got a short bow, which is an agility weapon, range of far, D6 plus 3, two-handed. Crossbow, a finesse weapon, far, does a D6 plus 1, physical, one-handed. Longbow is an agility, very far, D6 plus 3, two-handed, and it's cumbersome, so you have -1 to evasion. So those are your tier 1 starting primary weapons. Now let's look at the tier 1 magical weapons, and this requires the spellcasting ability to choose one of these weapons. Now you'll notice none of these weapons have prices, right? These are all just tier 1 weapons. That is what I'm talking about the emphasis not being on coin in Daggerheart. So let's look at these weapons. You've got Hallowed Axe, which is a strength trait melee weapon, D10 plus 1, magic damage, one-handed. Arcane Gauntlets, another strength-based weapon. Range is melee, D10 plus 3, magic damage, two-handed. Glowing Rings, agility, very close range, D10 plus 2, two-handed. Hand Runes, instinct weapon, very close, D10, magical damage, one-handed. A Returning Blade, it's a finesse weapon, range of close, D10 plus 1, magic, one-handed. Short Staff, it's an instinct weapon of close range, D10 plus 1, magic damage, one-handed. Dual Staff, instinct weapon, far range, D6 plus 3, two-handed. Scepter, it's a presence weapon with a range of far, D6 magic damage, two-handed. Versatile feature, present, so you can also do a presence of melee attack with it that does a D10. So if you're going to bop somebody with your scepter in melee, you can use the D10, or you can use some sort of energy attack, sort of magical scepter blast that you can flavor as you wish. That has a range of far, but it does a D6 damage. Wands. Knowledge is your trait. Range is far, D6 plus 1, magic damage, one-handed. Great Staff, a knowledge weapon, very far range, D6 damage, two-handed. Powerful is the feature it has. You get to roll 1 extra damage dice and drop the lowest. So there you have your primary weapons. You'll notice that they have different traits, so you can look at, and a lot of people will look at, what is my main trait? What's my best trait? Let's look at those weapons, so that way I get the best bonus that I can have. And those are the most suited weapons for my character. But I don't want to use this specific weapon, right? I want to use X, Y, or Z. So look at what's available there, and try and match up the weapon to the best fit, right, of what you want. Discuss with your GM, and I encourage GMs to allow players to choose the weapon they want that fits their trait best, and let them skin it how they want appropriately, right? If they make sure that they're choosing something that they want to represent as a big, huge, massive weapon, but they're choosing rapier as what they want to do that with, and it has the quick feature, it doesn't make much sense narratively, right? So that's when we're gonna go over this later, but think about what makes sense for the fiction in your world, and try and make sure that that is being addressed, right? You want your fiction to make sense, but also allow your players to flavor their weapons and skin the weapons the way that they would like to, as long as it makes sense within the narrative, right? So maybe I've got an agility character, and I want to use a hammer or a mace with my agility character, but I have got a -1 in strength. I don't want to use the mace. But a broadsword is an agility weapon. It's one-handed and it's reliable. That's a pretty good weapon. Can I skin my broadsword as a mace? My answer, and I encourage you as well, GMs, say yes. What's that going to hurt? It's a narrative choice, right? It's a narrative choice that this character wants to make so they feel good about the character that they're playing. It's what they have envisioned in their head. And if you say, oh, no, maces are strength-based, and that's all there is to it, you're taking the rules and you're letting them dictate the fiction, right? Whenever the spirit of Daggerheart says, let your fiction inform your rulings, right? So yes, your character is an agility-based character, and you don't want to use a broadsword. You want to use a mace, but you want to be able to be good with it. So you, of course, want to use the broadsword mechanics. Allow it. Let it happen. If there's something that's drastically out of whack because of the features of the weapon that they're wanting to use, not matching up with what they want to narratively describe, then adjust accordingly. But don't let a mechanical choice on this list dictate or mandate what they must choose to use. That's my advice to you as a GM. And players, have a bit of grace and be willing to discuss with your GMs if they have an issue with certain things, right? And now we're going to move on to the secondary options. So let's go over, get past all of the tier 4. So secondary weapons table. You've got the short sword, which is an agility trait, melee, D8 damage, one-handed. Feature is paired, so you can add +2 to primary weapon damage in melee if you've got a short sword in your offhand. Whenever you make that attack, you 2 extra points of damage, right? Round shield, a strength trait, melee attack, D4 damage, one-handed. It has the feature protective, which lets you add +1 to your armor score. If you choose to bash somebody with it, it does a D4 damage. Tower shield, strength, melee, D6 of damage, one-handed. It's got the barrier feature. You get to add +3 to your armor score, but you take away 2 from your evasion. So you're more likely to get hit with a tower shield, but you've got a +3 to that armor score to make that difference. You've got a small dagger, which is a finesse weapon. Melee, does a D8, one-handed. Paired, you can add +2 to the primary weapon damage in melee. You've got a whip as an option, which is a presence. Very close range, D6 damage, one-handed, and you've got the feature Whip Crack. Mark a stress to scatter enemies in melee into close range. It's a very interesting little feature it has there. You've got the Grappler, which is a finesse weapon, close range, D6 damage, one-handed. Features Hook. On a successful attack, you may also pull the target into melee with you. Get over here! Yeah, a Grappler. Who doesn't want one? Hand crossbow, finesse, far range, D6 +1, one-handed. Alright, those are your tier 1 options for primary and secondary weapons. Let's take a look at your tier 1 armor slots. Now, armor is very skinnable, right? You can choose to wear no armor. No armor means no effect on your attributes, right? No bonuses, no minuses. But it does, if you're not wearing armor, you no longer have an armor score, right? The only reason to go no armor, mechanically wise, would be is if you have some sort of feature that rewards you for not having armor. Other than that, you skin the armor how you would like to, right? So your armor does not have. So a wizard, you can play a wizard that's rocking full plate armor, right? And you're like, what? That makes no sense. But mechanics wise, you could represent that as that full plate armor is these heavy magical runes or some other thing. You can skin your armor however you want to. So the mechanics stay the same no matter what. Whether you skin it, no matter how you skin it, you don't change the mechanics on your armor. But feel free to skin the armor however you would like. So the level 1, tier 1 armors are Gambeson armor. It's got a base score of 3. Its feature is flexible, which gives you a +1 to your evasion. That's right, so if you're wearing Gambeson armor, you actually get a +1 to your evasion score, and it gives you a base armor score of 3. That's better than wearing no armor, all around, okay? Now, what is Gambeson armor? Gambeson armor is supposed to be like padded cloth, things like that. You skin it how you want to. It can be your clothes. It doesn't matter. But mechanically, you would be wearing Gambeson armor. The next armor up is leather armor. Base score of 4. No features to it whatsoever. It's your average baseline armor. Nothing gained, nothing lost. You've just got a base armor score of 4. Chainmail armor. Base score of 5. Feature is heavy, so it counts as a -1 to your evasion, right? And then you've got full plate armor. Base score of 6. Feature is very heavy. Gives you a -2 to your evasion and a -1 to your agility. But you've got that base armor score of 6, which is very nice for somebody that's going to be taking a lot of damage or taking a lot of hits. That might be where you want to go. This is all a personal decision for you to make on how you want to defend your character, and how you want damage to affect your character, right? So skin it how you would like. Those are your tier 1 choices. Now, you get tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, you'll see much wider array of things to choose from, and specific examples of different flavors of armor. Once again, you can represent this with your character however you would like to, but there you have it. Those are your basic choices you need to make at first level. Discuss your basic supplies with your GM, what that means. Choose your weapons, skin them how you would like. Make sure everyone's on board for how you want to skin your weapons, how you want to skin your armor. Just make sure mechanically you keep the stats there, and then you can put in parentheses what that actually is, or you can put the parentheses around what the actual item is and name it what you want to. That's up to you. Definitely make sure everyone understands at the table and has a good consensus on that. So that takes care of the last couple of things that really directly need to be addressed with character creation, your experiences, and your inventory. Now we're going to jump over to player principles, right? So if you watched the Warriors and Wizard episode, we wrapped it up so quick that I did kind of go just named off these categories, right? We didn't really discuss any of them, but we did talk about what the names of these categories were. So let us go ahead and jump into the player principles. So the first one, be a fan of your character and their journey. What does that mean? Be a fan of your character and your journey and their journey. So what that means, you want to find ways to show off what your character can do best and also what they do worse. You want to be a fan of your whole character. That means shining the spotlight on them when they're doing great, but also recognizing their weaknesses and not allowing them to not have those moments as well. Sometimes those are the moments where we grow the most. Push your character's story forward and strive to make interesting choices that serve the fiction, right? Don't always necessarily go with what works the best in that moment for your character to min max every great thing that they can do and just be super fantastic. You want to make interesting choices for the fiction, which may not always be the most optimal choice for your character, but it's going to let you pull your character and their journey forward, right? Learn about who they are through play and let the fiction and the decisions that you've priorly made inform the decisions and how they react to new situations. The more life and realness you breathe into your character, the more not only you are going to feel like they are a real living, breathing character, but everybody else at the table is going to get that immersion as well, right? So that is what it means to be a fan of your character and their journey, is letting the fiction dictate, let the background dictate, let the story dictate, and the life of the character dictate the decisions, not what is the optimal decision that I can make as a player to make sure that this goes best for my, that's not the game we're playing, folks. We are playing an epic journey, a heroic journey, saga to that's going to have ups and downs and breathe life into this character, and so that I encourage you, be a fan of your character and their journey. Let them shine, and let them have their moments of failure as well. Both are important for the story. Take opportunities to spotlight your allies. Look for chances to let your allies shine. From character creation and as you play, the things that your allies are looking to do with their characters, right? Set them up. Serve that pitch up to them that lets them knock it out of the park. Help them achieve and be a fan of their character, and they will help you be a fan of, they'll be a fan of your character too and help you shine in your moments. Support, look at them for help and ask them to elaborate on descriptions as well. If you see them trying to struggle with how to get things that they want to work into the story, take those downtime moments, step aside, have conversations in character with them to pull forward the things that they want to spotlight into the narrative, right? You want to play to find out what happens, right? Everything should flow from the fiction. You want to listen to the other players, you want to listen to the GM, you want to react to the world that you're seeing and how it is going, how things are happening in the fiction. Whenever you roll the dice, let the results, see what happens with the results, and then what happens next, right? You should embrace complications with the same vigor that you celebrate your victories, right? So whenever something is, you roll a success with fear, embrace the consequences of that fear. If the GM says, mark as stress because while you succeeded hitting your adversary here, Mark is stressed because two more adversaries have come from down the hall, and you see them rushing up to engage players B and C. So embrace that. Yell out something. Worry about. Describe how your character is now worried and a little bit more anxious because reinforcements just arrived. Let your character be brought into the story, and don't decide the answers outside of the fiction, right? Let the flow of the game and the story give you those answers. You want to address the characters and address the players, right? So this is something that really is something that you should address and do both of, right? There's going to be times where you want to have your character speaking directly to other characters in the world, your fellow players at the table or NPCs. But a lot of how you're going to build up the story and the narrative is to have discussions with your fellow players. This is not something that is as commonplace as you would think. I mean, it makes total sense when you think about fiction and narratives, movies, books. A lot of the information comes from the people talking to each other. A lot of times in role-play games, you will have your players not really engage in too many conversations with each other in character. They're more interested in finding out what is going on with X, Y, or Z. Let's keep going, let's keep moving, and get to the next plot point. Well, whenever you speak and you have discussions about the day-to-day in the fiction, kind of informs and breathes life into the world, and you may be having a discussion with your fellows around camp, and the GM may be over there taking notes and adding things into the fiction as you're going, because everything is supposed to flow from the fiction. The GM's not supposed to. I'm not, like, if I'm GMing, I'm not gonna have the next 12 sessions planned out. I don't even have this session planned out, right? I've got some goals and some questions of my own and some possible environments written down on things that I think that you as the players might do. I've got some hopefully I've got some go-tos in case we get bogged down or nobody's feeling inspired. But ultimately, we need answers to questions, and I'm not answering those questions before we find out in the game, right? I might have more knowledge as to those answers than you do, and I may have even made some decisions, but I should not have everything nailed down either. I should allow and leave room for the choices made and the fiction of the session to dictate what happens and how it happens. Does that mean that I should not be prepared or have some decisions made? No, that's not it at all. But we'll get into that later. I don't want to digress. But you should definitely have moments and conversations where you are speaking as your character. There will also be times, and it's important, that you address players to players. You're going to know things that your character doesn't know, right? Everybody's going to be like that. Everybody's going to have a meta view of the table and the fiction as well. And you can discuss things player to player that characters don't even know. And the ideal is to separate that and to, as players, wholeheartedly support each other, check in with each other, make sure everything's good. And then as characters, you want to embrace the fiction that you're living in and breathing and maybe even your character and your buddy's character don't necessarily get along, or they have different standings on an issue in the game, and y'all want to play a very severe argument out between them as they hash out this dramatic moment of, do we kill the prisoner so that way we don't have to worry about him, or do we need to keep him traveling with us because we can't let him go, but morally, my character is morally opposed to killing a prisoner, so we need to keep him until we can hand him off to some member of law enforcement, or find some way to deal with the situation. But as players, we're best friends and we're having a good time. We don't want to make each other mad. We touch base with each other, like, hey, we're gonna hash this out. We're gonna have a good argument, but you're good, I'm good, right? We're not gonna get mad at each other. Cool. Also, you can talk to players about like what is it that they're wanting to do? What is their achieved goal? If we do X, Y, or Z, is that okay with you? And this will vary from table to table and the situation. Sometimes you want to not necessarily delve too much into the player side of things because you want to keep it moving, right? This is something that is a big deal, and you'll have those moments at the table where you'll know you need to step back and talk, or maybe just roll with the characters. One of the things you want to do, next category, is called hold on gently. So what does that mean? We're doing an improvised storytelling, right? That's what we're doing. We need to hold on gently to the fiction, right? We've got our concepts, we've got our aims, we've got our tones. Sometimes things will happen in the moment, and they might veer away from those things that we want to do, or take a turn that doesn't seem quite right with our story. We can put the brakes on, right? And say, wait a second, let's give this a moment. We made a mistake. Let's rewind and reset and kind of go back into this and adjust, right, for our shared goals and our shared story. We want to give enough room that we can answer questions, right? We don't want to get ourselves bound up into a situation where somebody decided to do something that really is a poor choice for our established fiction, and we don't realize it immediately. Maybe we need to go back and adjust something. And it could be something that was said sessions ago or something, but it's a minor thing, hasn't had much impact into the game world, right, or our story. Do we need to go back and adjust, or do we need to remember and take into account something that happened that we all forgot about, and so now we need to step back, rewind 5 minutes in the fiction because we all forgot that this NPC gave this fact or said something back then that we just contradicted in the fiction, So hold on gently. Give yourself and your fellow players a bit of grace. Nothing is written in stone until it's all agreed to, and if you need to adjust it, right? You also want to build the world together. So every participant in Daggerheart is a storyteller, more so than any RPG I've ever played. Not just the game master, but all the players should have a say in the world, in the way things happen. You want to shine the light and let your players, and as a player, you want to be able to do your part as well. Whenever you get the GM pitching a moment to you to help describe something or inform the world on the reality. Some people, this may be very heady stuff for them, and they may panic and get overwhelmed. Take a breath. Remember, we're playing a game. What serves the fiction the best, right? And if you make a hasty decision and you need to come back because you feel like you did something wrong or you instituted something, but looking back on it, you're not sure if that was the right way to go. That's why we're holding on gently, right? You can always come back and touch base on something. But you should actively be advocating for the types of story beats that you want to see in the game, right? Offer suggestions to enrich a story arc for another player if you come up with something. Or maybe you see something that the GM hasn't noticed that you think, hey, Bob and Sarah both have these two different things going on. But I was thinking about something, and I think it would be really cool if Bob's MacGuffin actually was involved and being held by the secret society that Sarah's character is hunting down, right? You could propose that to the GM. You could propose that to Bob and Sarah. Help bring the fiction together, help bring the world alive, right? You're going to get a chance to make this campaign and this world more your own than probably you have in other game systems and settings. So embrace it and enjoy it. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. No one is perfect. No one is going to get everything right every single time. So give yourself and your fellow players and your game master a little grace. We're all here to tell a great story and have fun, right? So that's what you want to do. Finally, rounding out this episode, we're going to go over to player best practices. Much like principles, this is a way for you to make the most out of your Daggerheart experience, right? And you can always take, with all things, take what you like. If there's something that you don't like, leave it to the side. But these practices will help you embrace the spirit of Daggerheart and help you to have a great game and an enjoyable campaign. So number one, embrace the danger. What does that mean? It means that we're playing a game of adventurers, right? We're doing heroic journeys. They're often dangerous, and that's a major aspect to what makes it so much fun, is that we're telling these crazy tales of adventure that are way different than our mundane lives every day to day. So remember that your character, you love them, but they're a fictional character. No one's really going to get hurt. No one is going to suffer. So embrace the danger. Your character, regardless of how careful you are or how insane whatever's going on in the game sounds to us, your character is someone that is living in this dangerous world, following treacherous paths with fantastical monstrous beasts, powerful adversaries. Mystical things happen all the time. That's the reality that your characters live in, not the reality that we live in. So, your characters are these heroes, right? They're on this heroic journey. They need to be embracing the heroic, dangerous life they're living. If you are playing your characters so nervous and so conservative that there's no way for them to move forward in the narrative, then, and I'm not saying you can't play a character that obviously, sees situations and knows that they're in danger, they're outmatched, this would be suicide. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that you don't want to be too cautious. You don't want to be so worried about things that you bog the game down in your character's paranoia of being hurt or something bad happening, right? Um, that's what it means by embracing the danger. We're playing a game with people, characters that are living dangerous lives that anything could happen at any moment. So embrace that aspect of the game. And remember how much control, and maybe you don't know this yet, but in Daggerheart you have more control over the potential death of your character probably than in any other system I'm familiar with, right? You can flat out avoid your character's death as long as you want to, really. Now your character will eventually, go down and down if this continues to happen, and become more challenging. But and you may eventually have to retire your character, but that doesn't mean they have to die. You should have a satisfying resolution to your character, right? They shouldn't be getting killed at an inappropriate point in the story. And if you're someone who doesn't want your character to die at all because that just really would affect you, you have options to avoid that. Now, you also have options to totally embrace the death of a character if it's that right moment and you want the character to go out in that blaze of glory, that epic moment that we all know from fiction, where your character does sacrifice themselves for the greater good of either the world or even an ally or the party. Then go for it. You also have that chance where you don't know, but either way, you have a lot of say whether your character actually gets killed or not. So take that into account whenever you're embracing the danger as well. It's not as solid or sure thing that your character will die even whenever it's time to make that death move. It is a death move for a reason, because you have some leeway in what happens to your character. You want to use your resources, right? You have a maximum hope of 6. And hope is going to be your liquid currency. It's going to flow back and forth more than probably anything else. You should be generating hope roughly about 50% of your rolls, depending on whether you roll with hope or roll with fear. Your average is going to work out roughly to about 50%. Should be 50%. Now, differences happen. Some people are just innately lucky. Some people are innately unlucky. Sometimes it's the dice that they're rolling might have a little wonkiness to them or something like that. But either way, it should be about 50-50. So you should be spending that fear throughout the game. It's up to you how you spend it and how often you want to spend it, but definitely use it. Don't just sit on it, because once you get up to 6 hope, you're not getting any more hope. You might as well use some of it up. The other resources that you have access to, hit points, stress, armor, all of those things are going to fluctuate throughout the game. Sometimes you'll get or use them using your abilities or spells. Sometimes you'll get them back by using downtime resources, things like that. But don't be afraid to look at your character and see how they function. Some people may want to rock lower hit points and save their armor. Some people may want to use up all of their armor before they even get to their hit points. See what works best for your character and go with the narrative. Some people may want to use multiple armor slots at a time. Somebody else may only use one armor slot at a time. That's up to you. It's how you want to do it, but look at the resources you have available to you. Figure out how you replenish those resources, and don't be afraid to use your hope. And then, finally, best practices: tell the story. Um, well, that's not final. There's also one more. But you want to tell the story. Um, you're an equal partner in the collaborative effort of with everybody else telling the story of the campaign. You'll get opportunities to to not just build the world, but make decisions, campaign decisions for the game moving forward. And you want to go back to the core concepts and the spirit. Let the fiction dictate your choices. Try and make interesting decisions, not necessarily the most neat and tidy decision. You make too many neat and tidy decisions, and you could end up wrapping up your story way before you got to do what you wanted to do, because the decisions that you made turned into boom, boom, boom. And now you've solved all the problems because you made it right there. Embrace the story, embrace the decision making in the game. Try and build the best story arcs that you can, not necessarily the most efficient, right? Don't always go for the most tactical or sound strategic move. Embrace your character, embrace who your fellow characters are. And then finally, you want to discover your character through play, right? When you start out, and especially in session 0, you're not going to have all the answers for your character. You're not going to have all your background answers. Your GM's definitely not going to have everything for the campaign worked out in session 1. Not if you're using the session 0 and the flow of the fiction to find out your answers. They're not. But you want to build upon the things that you've decided, and in the fiction, you're gonna come across things, and you're gonna have to make decisions for your character in the moment. Some of those you might need to take a moment, and if you do, let everybody know. But you don't want to bog down or hold everybody up by trying to decide what is your character's favorite food. Oh my gosh, I need to know this, and I don't know what their favorite food is. It's not that big of a deal. If you want to take a moment, think about it, then make a decision. If you don't know, try and get in your character's mindset and think of something that you know that they would like. Maybe later on you come back and you're like, wait, no, I know I said that his mother's potato soup with a bit of onions and some fresh cheese melted in was his favorite thing to eat. But really, I've thought about it more, and the character really loves blackberry pie. That's really their favorite. It's okay. How many times in life have you told somebody your favorite thing only to realize later that your favorite thing is actually something different, or your favorite thing changes? I know my favorite things have changed over time. So let your character discover your character through the fiction, build upon it as you go, and as you play, the more you play your character, the more you will discover these answers coming to you, because you know more about your character. Didn't know that was it, but now whenever this question gets posed to you, you instantly know that your character is definitely going to stand up for these people, even though the law's against them. They're innocent people that need help, and you now know that is something that your character is all about. You didn't know it initially, but throughout the play, you know he's not going to put up with this nonsense. It's time to stand up against this corrupt noble and his lackeys. That is an example, but you want to use the fiction to discover the answers for your character, and let that guide all things. That's the spirit of Daggerheart, y'all. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope it's given you a bit more insight on how to approach this game. It's a wonderful game by Darrington Press. And we'll be coming back at you with more information. And I think next time we're gonna discuss duality dice, the hope and fear mechanics. It has a lot to do with how this game flows and how you're gonna be using it throughout the game. So hope you're having a great day. We're getting close to Halloween. I hope you're gonna do something fun. We will be coming back with more episodes. I did a massive sweep yesterday, getting all of the details out for character creation. Kind of feel like today was the wrap up for that. I need to touch base on some other things, so it may be a few days before you see another Daggerheart episode, but I've got plenty of content up here for you to go through. If you haven't watched them all, please do so. If you would like to support the channel, there's the PayPal donations both in Twitch and on YouTube. Would love to see the ability to keep doing this content, and I have left my corporate job that I used to have to try and do something that makes me happier, that's less stressful. But money is an issue, as we all know. So I am working on some things that hopefully they'll be fruitful, and I will be able to continue to focus on doing these videos and streaming and running some professional games. That would be ideal, but if not, we're going to have to get our booty some work again, and that's okay too, because we'll find something to do, and it will not be as stressful as as stressful as the job that I had, which was really hurting me, both physically and emotionally. It was just getting to me too much. So I will see you guys next time, and we will be throwing up some more of our gaming content, which has been getting neglected over this past week between me being sick and trying to get all this Daggerheart stuff going. So the next couple of days, look for some updates on some of the games that we've been playing, and we'll probably continue to do at least a couple episodes a week of Daggerheart information. I expect that we will definitely have plenty to do, and I am, like I said, this is the thing I'm most excited about, is going over Daggerheart, and then hopefully once our campaigns start, our sagas start on Start Play, we'll have more fodder to discuss with you as I get to tell you about the decisions and choices that my groups have made. And then we'll also be starting up a series to help fellow DMs, whether you're playing Daggerheart or another system. We'll get started something to give advice on situations and gaming and game mastering issues. All right, y'all. Well, y'all have a good night. If you can make somebody else's day better, please do so. We could all use a little bit more light and love in the world. If you haven't voted early or you can't vote early, make sure you get out and vote next Tuesday. It's important that if you have the right to vote, you exercise it, y'all. Catch you next time. It's Rollinwolf signing out.